This is Practically Culture, a podcast devoted to TV, movies, sometimes video games, and other pop culture. I'm your host, Logan Bowe, podcasting from Lehigh, and I'm joined, as always, by the one, the only Bob Kaz on the Bay Area. How are you, Bob? You know, before you answer, I don't know why I always giggle a little bit when I say Lehigh, but it's just as funny that I'm podcasting from Lehigh. Anyway, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you in Lehigh?
Just hanging out, you know me, and giggling.
Nice.
Welcome to our main show. This week we review Bohemian Rhapsody, and we have the usual mini reviews and weekend picks. If you like what you hear, look for us in the usual podcast app and at practicalculture.com and on YouTube. We recommend to check it all out if you're into the show. It's TV, it's movies, it's sometimes video games, it's Practically Culture. Let's rock. Oh, man, it is good to be back, Bob. And one of the things that's occupying my thoughts coming up is I'm thinking of making a cake this week. Just put into practice everything I can think of and everything I've learned. I mean, making a cake usually isn't that monumental of an undertaking, I suppose. But I'm going to try to get after this cake. Hashtag get after it.
What kind of cake?
So what I'm thinking of doing is, so
complicated already, I can tell.
I know you probably don't watch the Great British Baking Show, but there is a scene in the opening where they put raspberries on a cake, and they just like leave a little space where a raspberry should go, and they don't put one there. And so it bothers people, many of us, certain people of us more than others. And so I'm going to make a cake that recreates that bothersome angle. Just for fun. But on the inside, that's where I'm trying to decide. So I think I'm going to do on the inside. Well, yeah, so the outside has to be chocolate of some sort. I'm probably going to do a ganache with raspberry on top. But inside, I think I'm going to do hazelnut sponge cake layers. And in between those three layers, in between two of them is going to be a chocolate Italian buttercream, and
oh my God! Stop! I already want it.
A raspberry mousse. So it'll be hazelnut sponge, raspberry mousse, hazelnut sponge, chocolate Italian buttercream, hazelnut sponge, ganache, raspberries.
Wow! Just why don't we live in the same geographical vicinity? Jeez.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll make it again sometime.
Please do. Yeah. Write this one down.
That's just what I was thinking of. Are you ready to get to this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Bohemian Rhapsody, a chronicle of Freddie Mercury and the years leading up to Queen's legendary appearance at the Live Aid concert in 1985, starring Rami Malek, Lucy Boynton, and Gwilym Lee. Not a lot of people I could put at third billing, but I just I like the guy playing Brian May, so I put him in there. Cool. Directed by Bryan Singer, who's done a lot of the X-Men movies, and he's done Valkyrie. Written by Anthony McCartan, who's got some feathers in his cap in having written Darkest Hour and The Theory of Everything. Hit us with a mini review, Bob.
Yeah, first I should say I should have been more prepared. We can Google it. But Bryan Singer didn't really direct it. It's just that he gets the credit because of guild rules or something, right?
Yeah, he came on at the end, but some other guy did most of the work.
No, I think he was part of the project in the beginning and then got fired for bad behavior. And then some guy came in and did the whole thing. And then his name was already on it.
Oh, is that how it was? Okay. Well,
yeah. And he's got his own. Yeah. We should probably, for all my good intentions here, I don't have the new person's name ready, but we should give him credit. We'll look it up at some point.
All right.
Anyway, so here's my mini review for Bohemian Rhapsody. If you're a fan of Queen, I am. This is a real treat of a biography that focuses a lot on both the music and the music-making process. And while the story could have gone deeper, I thought it was mostly fine. 4 out of 5. I am going to fight for this one. I'm going to recommend it. Before you say anything, Logan, I don't know which team you're on, but this is a little bit of a polarizing film. Or maybe I'm just making it into that. I want to hear your mini review, and then I'll tell you why.
Well, it's interesting because our mini reviews could dovetail and overlap because your last 2 words are my first 2 words. Mostly fine and worth seeing for Malek's Mercury if you are interested in that, but the nitpicks add up for me and end up detracting from the movie. 3 out of 5.
I knew it. Your team not as fun and flighty and cool as let's criticize and blah, blah, hate shade and Christmas is dumb. Tell me more.
That's a long team name, but it actually is my team name. That's like what I've written on the top line of my journal.
I nailed it.
So what's to like? I mean, we definitely have to talk about Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury. That's the main course. That's the entree in this meal of a movie, right?
Right. Yes.
What did you think?
Not as handsome, but very, very good performance, especially bodily movement wise. I don't think I've ever, not ever, but I don't really listen to Freddie Mercury talking. So I'm sure his voice was fine enough, because when he's singing, it's basically all him. Although I heard that some parts were some Christian rock Freddie Mercury impersonator. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Oh, really? You've really looked into this, huh?
I did some research a little bit, but it's like 80% Freddie Mercury's voice for all the important parts, which is the music.
80% Rami Malek's voice.
Or excuse me, yeah. Yeah, it's mostly Rami Malek's voice whenever he's talking, and then it's Freddie Mercury's voice whenever it's singing for the most part.
Oh, okay.
That's what I want to say. So I have to also bring up that the obvious comparison right now is to Bradley Cooper, who did a very different type of performance, and because it was original, not based on somebody who already exists, and he also did original singing and songwriting and all this other crazy stuff as part of that whole package. And this is definitely not that. So it's more of an impersonation than it is like.
It's a different kind of acting exercise,
well,
that's for sure. You're trying to be a specific person, whereas Bradley Cooper is trying to be a rock star.
Yeah. But you asked, how did I like it? I liked it fine. I thought it was actually pretty good. I did get a little distracted in the beginning, especially by Rami Malek's eyes. They're just not the same as Freddie Mercury's.
They're big, yeah. So but you said a lot of things in there that I want to double click on. So we'll have a few like browser tabs open.
Okay, good.
So we can double click on all these. But voice wise, so I didn't know that they had some other guys singing. I thought the singing was surprisingly good, but the thing about trying to do Freddie Mercury, both in acting or in singing, is Freddie Mercury is one of the most, like, you can't be any more Freddie Mercury than Freddie Mercury was. He's already dialed up to 11, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a very big project you're taking on. And I thought both of them, the singing and the acting, the movements, were as good as you could expect. But it's just,
well, to be clear, a lot of the singing was actually Freddie Mercury, just dubbed over.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. That other impersonator guy came in for some of the stuff that made sense to re-record, but a lot of that was like the Live Aid concert, and some of the other songs were some of the original recordings. So anyway,
was I really? Because I feel like I went right home and watched the Live Aid stuff, and I don't know. It's interesting because I felt like I liked it better, like on the YouTube clips and stuff.
Oh, really?
But maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
And there is that opening. Like, maybe I need to research this more, or we can do this after. But like, my understanding, it was mostly Freddie Mercury for the singing, but this Christian rocker impersonator guy kind of filled in the cracks. But maybe my ratios are off. So, and who knows which ones are the ones that impressed upon you, whatever differences, or I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So I misunderstood when you described that before, and I guess I haven't looked into it myself. So I don't know. So maybe it's just like the Pepsi challenge. Not knowing what it is makes me not like it as much. But I felt a little bit disappointed that it wasn't quite what I wanted as Freddie Mercury. But it was really good. It's like, I couldn't do that well. I can't imagine many people doing any better than this. But it's just I don't know. Freddie Mercury is Freddie Mercury.
So you could say like the mix or the balance was off. Like maybe for you, because you do hone in on these sorts of particulars more than the average person, I want to say. I thought that the mix of different impersonators, both bodily and vocally, with Freddie Mercury being a dominant force, even though he's no longer with us, with his vocals, it all seamlessly blended together to make a nice cake that came out of the oven for me.
Yeah, pretty good. But again, it was just like one of my many nitpicks. That's like, he's just a hard guy to pull off. But they did pretty well. They did, remarkably well.
Yeah.
I thought in general the look of everything was pretty good, whether it's Rami Malek's movements or just the costumes, hair, those prosthetic teeth. Actually, like the costumes and set design in general was really terrific. The whole band was remarkably realistic.
Yes.
And I think Brian May's hair should get a supporting Oscar nomination too.
I loved it. I'm glad you pointed that out. We definitely agree on all those factors for sure.
And another thing I wanted to talk about is I definitely learned a lot about Freddie Mercury and Queen's history that I didn't know. And, you know, it's interesting. So even though I certainly had a classic rock 70s, 80s music phase, largely facilitated by you, Queen was never one of the bands that I loved for whatever reason.
Really? I'm surprised that maybe I'm retroactively loving it more than I really did if I didn't.
Well, I'm not saying anything about you. I'm just
no, but because you and I have a shared history with music in that way, like I'm surprised I didn't like put it on you more or something. Because I want to say that Queen has a special place in my heart for several reasons. It's just this misfit type music that was ahead of its time, but also very catchy, but also very quirky. And
as I've gotten older, I've certainly found Freddie Mercury to be more and more fascinating, largely because of that utter uniqueness. Because I like that in musicians. I think one of my favorite musicians, maybe my favorite, rocker ever, is Jack White, and he's also got that like completely unlike anyone else thing.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing with Freddie Mercury and Queen for me is my dad actually was really into Queen, and he had all their albums, and he was really into classic rock generally, but I sort of, if I'm honest with myself, mirrored him a little bit in terms of my like of certain classic rock bands, although I ended up liking Led Zeppelin more than him, even though he's the one who probably started me on it and likes Led Zeppelin a lot. But anyway, probably more detail than necessary, but Queen was pretty high on his list, which just made it high on my list. And
I'm just saying I never really looked into or knew much about the story. So a lot of it was just very informative to me, this movie.
Gotcha. I want to say I knew a lot of the broad beats. Like there's some little things I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. But overall, I did know this general storyline, even though ironically, it was pretty risque and especially in the community we grew up in, knowing anything about the Queen storyline, I guess could be just, controversial is not the right word, but like, ooh, that's what worldly people do and how they live. And that's an example of what can go wrong, is like the stereotypical like Utah perspective growing up in the 90s or something. But I say it's ironic because a lot of criticism of this movie now is that it was kind of straight washed or really tepid or not. It didn't really go into whatever the controversy really would be, and it left it at the Mormon story, kind of.
So that's an interesting one, because I guess I have dual, I'm double fisting criticisms along those lines. For one, I felt like a lot of the snippets, they had a lot of snippets, like how Freddie found the guys, or how Bohemian Rhapsody made it on the radio, or Freddie spending time in Germany and having drug-fueled gay sex parties. But the thing is, all those snippets were just snippets, and they're like appetizers that maybe want more on each of those areas. Like, wait a second, okay, you caught my interest, now tell me the rest of the story. It's just glossed over a lot. So narratively, I had a problem. Also, some of those things, particularly him having AIDS, and we just have like one little scene of him dressing it. Hey, bad guys, I have AIDS, and let's not talk about it so much more. Oh, okay. I'm sure that was all there was to the story. Like, no one thought about it any more than that. It didn't affect his life any more than that. I'm sure that's all we needed to know. No. I thought it could have been interesting to see his entree into like gay leather sex culture in Germany in the 80s. Because that could be an interesting movie in and of itself. But we just sort of got these little ticklers, these little teasers, these hints.
Yeah. Well, I also have a lot of thoughts on this.
Okay.
So what I want to say is I both wanted more, but was just fine with it being this way, because maybe not that it all has to go back to my dad, but this movie works well because it's accessible. It's like, it has all of the controversial stuff, I guess, whatever it is being gay in Germany in the 80s with those bondage rooms or whatever. And then AIDS happening, and like it confronts all of that. It doesn't hide it, but it doesn't really deal with it like it would be a movie about those topics. It's a movie about the music and about how this band came together, and it moves along at a good pace for me. And it's like, what I'm trying to say is, I don't mean for this to be controversial, but I didn't find it particularly offensive in trying to hide anything or trying to like make it a story that it wasn't. I just think it was just a different focus. And I think the focus that they chose, and by the way, part of the reason for this, I don't know, more research I did, the living band members have quite the power involved in making this movie. They're producers, and they really wanted to protect the legacy of Freddie Mercury. So they were heavily involved, and it was designed from the very beginning to be kind of PG-13-ish and not really go deep on some of these themes. But I don't think that need be like a reason to say it's not a good movie or not a good version of his life or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I don't feel offended. I just would have been more interested had they done some stuff like that.
Well, you're a bad person for not feeling offended.
One thing I do want to touch on too is it is sort of about the music. One of my favorite scenes definitely was when they're just in rehearsal and Brian May's like, we need to get the audience to interact, so just like stomp on the ground, don't do this. And you're like, oh, I know what's coming. This is going to be awesome.
A lot of stuff like that. And it also showed that this band really worked together. They kept saying themes. And I knew this part of the story a little before, like that they're a family. Freddie did kind of get the majority of the spotlight, and that caused some problems. And you could argue that some of this is like, oh, this is just stereotypical biopic, a band drama stuff that's really boring now. And I'm like, yeah, but it's Queen, and it's really what happened. So
yeah, or some of that drama. One of my favorite things, I have no idea how manufactured it was for the movie, but when Freddie Mercury's like, yeah, okay, I know I was an asshole and I was telling you that I didn't need you. It turns out I kind of do. I need you to like keep me contained, push back on me.
Yeah,
I think that's true for a lot of artists to realize that they need to be reined in, put on a leash a little bit, and that's how everyone does their best.
Yeah, I went off and hired a bunch of people to do exactly what I wanted, and turns out they did.
That was the problem.
Yeah, that was the problem. Yeah, I love those types of snippets and tidbits. So for me, this is just really a solid slice of a much bigger story, but it was stitched together in a way that I thought it's a good legacy if that's what you're going for, but it's also just an enjoyable movie, especially if you love the music. I guess I'm already in wrap-up mode, but there's probably more to say, but I can't stress enough how much I just loved this movie, just like as a sheer joy emotion coming out of me experiencing it.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. And I guess I had a little less of that, and I had just the nitpicks started to add up. When I don't let nitpicks run the show, I try not to, but when you have so many, then they just, I don't know, sour it slightly for me. I liked it, and it's worth it if you're interested at all in seeing Rami Malek be Freddie Mercury. Definitely go see it.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to get an Oscar nod? Maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised either way, but I could see him not getting one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right.
Anyway, so for mini reviews, I have one quasi mini review I'm going to do today just to fill this little time slot for us.
Okay.
And I saw a professional production of Sweeney Todd up at the Pioneer Theater Company in Salt Lake. I don't mention every production for mini reviews of shows I see, because I see a lot, but a lot of it's community theater. But this one, it was professional. Certainly the ticket prices made it seem professional. They had like an orchestra, a pit orchestra, which I always feel like is like what separates the men from the boys in the musical theater. I love performing with pit orchestra, and it just helps it feel more alive. And I don't know, that was great. So Sweeney Todd, I really like this version. I've seen Sweeney Todd before. There's like the Johnny Depp movie recently, and it was always sort of a whatever musical for me. But this was like the first one that made me want to think, maybe want to say to myself, hey, maybe I should audition for Sweeney Todd, that role, if I ever see the chance. It just seemed great fun and just a wonderful production to be part of. The singing was really great. I really liked the guy, Sweeney Todd, and Mrs. Lovett with her pies. She was terrific too. I wasn't feeling like I was missing Angela Lansbury from that old version at all.
Okay.
And the boy, what's his name? Anyway, the young boy who ends up having a big part at the end. I'm doing spoiler alerts for Sweeney Todd, whatever. He was really creepy and added just I don't know, I guess I saw it the week of Halloween last week. Just I don't know, really creepy, spooky vibe that helped wrap it all together. So I was really pleased.
Yeah, it's hard for me. No, that's cool. Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, this kind of stuff feels like it can't not turn into a meta conversation on review systems, because like Sweeney Todd as a subject, it's just always been so bizarre and gruesome and quirky and goofy.
And it depends on if you like Stephen Sondheim or you love Stephen Sondheim. That factors into it as the writer.
Yeah, so it's just really hard to be like, how many stars did you give it? Do you recommend it? It's like, I mean, if you don't know what Sweeney Todd is, don't just go into this cold turkey. That's the first thing.
Yeah, it's kind of in your face. A little bit different than a lot of musicals. It's not The King and I, that's for sure.
Right.
But I really liked it. I was delighted more than I thought I would be. And I feel like that's as good of praise as I can give it. Like, oh, next time I see auditions going around a community theater, I think I might audition for this. So.
Yeah, one more reason for me to visit. I want to have the cake you're baking, and I want to see Sweeney Todd in the best form possible. So good to know.
All right. Anyway, so that's our quasi-min review. Let's get to some weekend picks. TV-wise, Friday is the day. So Friday on HBO, Room 104 comes back for a second season. This is, of course, the anthology. Well, it's not quite the anthology because every episode is different. An anthology is like every season being different. Maybe it's a version of anthology. I don't know.
Yeah.
The Duplass brothers did it last year. It's also super strange. I remember there was one like Mormon Missionary one. Did you go back and watch the Mormon Missionary one? I can't remember.
I did watch the Mormon Missionary one. I didn't really watch many of the others. I watched that one and then another one, and just the concept of
one
it.
because I think I said one was like one of the most disturbing episodes of TV.
You did say that.
Did you watch that one?
No, I didn't watch that one. I still on my list, but you scared the bejesus out of me with it.
Yeah, it's sort of Sweeney Todd warnings are in order.
Right. I just listened to Mark Duplass on a podcast, and I have to say, good for him, and I'm excited. But I just don't know if this format or style, I just don't connect with stuff in these short snippets quite the same way. Although the Romanovs is doing that a bit on Amazon.
And you're liking that?
I'm liking that quite a bit, but it's much longer episodes. So anyway, we'll see. Yeah,
so it seems very experimental, but I sort of like the first one. I thought I'd mention the second one. We sort of, I don't know if there are our main guys, the Duplass brothers, but we sort of like a lot of their stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Fans of them.
I'd say they're up there. Yeah.
Also Friday on Netflix, and I can't believe I'm saying this again, but the Great British Baking Show is back with another season. It feels like we've had like 17 seasons this year.
Yeah.
But they're coming at us fast and furious. I know it's not for everyone, but I'll be watching. And Friday also gives us a Netflix movie, which I know you might talk about, but Netflix is in that weird area. Outlaw King, Chris Pine's in it. David Mackenzie directs. He did Hell or High Water, which is a movie that we've really liked in the last few years, written by Taylor Sheridan. So I'm sort of intrigued by that, drawn to it.
Yeah, me too, actually, because it's both a movie and the rumor is, I don't know if it's a rumor as much as just an obvious thing, Netflix is also releasing it in theaters in a limited release because they think it could be good enough for Oscar stuff. But I don't know. Just for the buzz and the chatter out there, it feels like something we could totally watch.
So those are the picks for you. Let's talk movies, Bob. What do you have for us?
All right, we got a lot of movies to go through, Logan, and it's because I keep thinking we're going to start watching like Oscar homework type stuff. Not that it needs to be homework, but stuff that we want to see because it's getting lots of buzz. But all that's coming out later. There's still
in New York and LA.
Yeah. So the first movie I want to mention is The Grinch. This is a remake of the beloved Dr. Seuss tale. I watched the cartoon as a kid. I didn't really do the Jim Carrey one because I feel like it came out when I just got married. It's just wrong demographic.
Just newlywed people are not going to see Grinch movies?
A live action version of the Grinch. It just probably wasn't at the top of our list. So it's been like 15 years since that Jim Carrey one, and now this is Benedict Cumberbatch, and it's
now we know about how long you've been married.
Yeah. This is a PG, very nice and accessible, animated, good-looking graphics or style to it, but I just feel like for you and me, I don't know that this is going to be something that is needing our thoughts on it, but you tell me.
There's a chance I'll see it for nostalgia's sake, but yeah, I don't know that it has to be our featured full review or anything like that.
Okay, yeah. So next up of the wide releases, we've got Overlord. Now, I kind of want to see this, if I'm honest with you, because it's basically right before D-Day, and it's a team of American paratroopers that drop into Nazi-occupied France to carry out a mission that's crucial to the invasion's success. And then it becomes basically a Nazi zombie movie, which is awesome because I love playing Nazi zombies in the Call of Duty games, which is kind of a thing from the last few years. And turn it into a movie I would think would make it dumb. But it's actually getting pretty good reviews. And people are saying, this is actually, for what it's kind of one of those for what it is sort of things. For what it is, it has a lot to say and it does a lot with what it's got. So there's a part of me that makes me want to make you see it, but I want to see how you feel.
We got to see something. So I guess it's not another question. And I like war movies. So for me, it's like, okay, American soldiers, D-Day. And then the part where you say it gets awesome is the part where I'm like, oh, why does that do that?
But it's like Nazi zombies, but with a premise that makes it so it's not like there's plots and stuff, plot points. And,
all right.
It could be plausibly for chemicals are involved,
Sure. If you want to, I'm in.
Okay. Well, the next wide release is The Girl in the Spider's Web. And this is the latest Swedish action joint, I want to say, based on a book series.
Well, did you see the Girl in the Dragon Tattoo movies?
Yes. I saw, the one. Was there more than one? Probably.
I thought there were 3, but based on the 3 books. No?
Well, I saw one movie, and I liked it.
I don't know.
No, we'll fact check that later. But I saw one movie of that, and I liked it. This is Claire Foy, who we just saw in a very different role in
First Man,
and she was also on The Crown and stuff. I kind of want to see this, but it also looks like just very serious, standard drama, action. Everything's dark and snowy. But then, I like those movies sometimes. How do you feel?
Whatever. I could go for that too. We got to see something,
Okay. So this high praise from you makes me want to ask follow-up questions. Like, you're on a desert island and it's this movie versus Overlord. Which one is more appealing? Or is it really like, Bob, just roll some dice?
I'm not really drawn to either of them. So,
okay.
But I'm not. I don't know. Not too many movies, I guess, make me think that's a hell no, a hard pass.
All right.
But neither of them are that. So,
well, it looks like the Showtime/theater choices for Bob is what's going to make the decision. Some other movies also coming out. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Now, this one getting high praise, of course, because it's the Coen brothers, and they're trying something a little bit different in a movie, 6-part Western anthology film. But it's limited release. And I guess wide releasing, who knows, a week or 2 or a month later. It's got Tim Blake Nelson, James Franco, Liam Neeson, a bunch of people. I think we're definitely going to see this because it's very capital F filmmaking, highbrow type stuff that probably will be nominated for something. But I just don't think we can see it this week.
Okay.
Next is Outlaw King, which you already mentioned. This could be an obvious choice, especially for lazy people who don't have to leave their house.
Well, I'm actually more interested in the others too, so it doesn't have to be.
That's like multiple birds with one stone. Whoa, Aaron Taylor Johnson is in it? Did you say that?
I don't think I did. I just mentioned Chris Pine.
Okay, well, Chris Pine is awesome. Actually, this might end up being the more obvious pick just because of a lot of factors, but we'll see. And then I also want to mention quickly The Front Runner, which we'll definitely see, starring Hugh Jackman, directed and written by Jason Reitman. We see all of his stuff. We're kind of fans, but it's also limited release. It's a story about a charismatic politician way long ago in 1988 before Trump.
Gary Hart. I mean, it's not just some politician. It's Gary Hart, right?
Yeah, it's Gary Hart, but you might know who that is, and I might barely know who that is, but I feel like the name is the least important thing about this.
Okay. All right.
In 2018, yeah, anyway, it's just kind of a cautionary tale / retrospective on something that's kind of hilarious in our current environment, but that's all I'll say for now.
Okay, keep the spoilers away. Thanks, Bob.
I'm there for you. There's some other movies I mentioned in previous podcasts. There's the Melissa McCarthy one.
Was I just giving you shit too much? Did you mention that it's a Jason Reitman directing it?
Yeah, I did. I said he directed it, and we're actually fans, and he's also the writer, one of the writers. We're definitely going to see it. It's just a question of when. It's just that I think it might be LA, New York now. This other limited release, Can You Ever Forgive Me, starring Melissa McCarthy, we mentioned it back when it limited release. I think it might be accessible in random theaters starting this week for us. But I'm just telling you, people, right now it's just a weird time for movie. Well, I guess it's the same every year, but I want to say I'm especially cognizant of it for some reason. Like the wide releases are like, I don't know, maybe. And then all the Oscar ones are like, well, it's in the second. Yeah, New York and LA are the second phase of rolling it out. And when is it really? And then there's a million on Christmas Day. So we don't know what it's going to be, but those are your weekend picks.
All right. Well, there you go. It's TV, it's movies, it's Practically Culture. There's some picks for you. Go forth and watch. And that's this week's episode of Practically Culture. Join us next week as we review We're Not Sure Yet. Keep it locked to Twitter. And we'll have the usual mini reviews and weekend picks. You can find more from us at practicallyculture.com and in your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Logan Bo. Bob's at Bob Caswell. Send us a message. Ask us a question. Let us know how you like the show. Get out there and watch some TV and movies. People play some video games. It's good for you. Thanks for rocking with us.
Have a good one.